Well, the weather is still really terrible. No improvement there. I am going to feed the bees. So let me show you how I do that. And also let me show you the syrup solution I use. So I'm going to do the mixing here in my slop sink. This sink has nice deep sides. And if I were to spill any sugar, which I probably will, it'll be easy to just rinse down the drain. That keeps ants and other things away because they love sugar. And the sugar I'm using is pure cane premium granulated sugar. The only ingredient is, let's check the other side, sugar, 100% sugar. I don't want to use brown sugar or any kind of other fancy sugar, just regular, pure white sugar. So I'm going to mix up a 1-to-1, that's 1-to-1 by volume ratio. I'm just going to go ahead and dump my sugar right into the jar here. And I want to fill this thing up about halfway. And there we go. There's the spilling I was talking about. It'll take about the whole bag, and that'll get you right to the halfway point. Perfect. Now I just need to add water. So now what I'm going to do is just get some water going here. I'll just use some cold water, and I'm going to stir it using this spatula here until it's full. This might take a minute or two to get all the sugar dissolved, but it's amazing how much sugar you can dissolve in water. A little more water going. There we go. It's starting to dissolve. I can feel it off the bottom. It's not nearly as much there anymore. Alright, I'm going to go ahead and shut this off. And now at this point all I got to do is stir for a bit. This is what the syrup looks like when it's all mixed up. It's nice, clear, slight golden color. No sugar crystals in suspension. Full right to the top. This can be a little bit tricky to pour into the feeders. So instead of pouring directly from this container, which is a bit heavy, has a large mouth, I'm going to use a watering can with the spout removed. I just popped the little spout off. I got this from Home Depot for just a couple bucks. I'm just going to pour the syrup into here, and this makes things a lot easier. This is one of my feeders. It's called a rapid feeder. I've tried quite a few different styles of feeder over the years, and I've settled on this. It's by far my favorite, and now I have one of these on each hive, and 2 spare because I plan to make 2 splits this year. So I have a total of 10. Now the bees, so there's this plastic cover here, this comes off, and then the bees crawl up into the feeder through this hole. The feeder sits on the inner cover, or you can build out of plywood or some other wood a special feeding board with a hole in the center. Just big enough for the feeder to sit on top of it and for the bees to be able to come up through into the feeder. And the bees, they crawl up through the hole and they can hang out right along the edge of this yellow ring here and crawl around on the inside of this clear plastic ring. The syrup goes here in this bowl, and there's little holes and notches that allow the syrup to come up through into this area here where the bees can access it. Now these are great because I don't need to disturb the colony to add feed, unlike some of the in-hive style feeders, which require actual access inside the hive to refill. With these, all I need to do is access the feeder itself, and the bees can stay down in the hive. The second thing I really like about these is the volume of syrup that they hold. They hold quite a bit. If a hive is real thirsty and going through a lot, I still need to refill them about every 36 hours. But unlike a ball jar, which only holds a small quantity, they're a lot less likely to run out. And the third thing I really like about these is that they're easy to fill. It doesn't take much. A watering can will do it. You just, kind of do this with a watering can or a pitcher with a little spout on it. That's all the difference in the world. I don't want to spend all day feeding my hives, especially if I have to do it on a regular basis. I want it to be quick and easy. When I had a smaller number of hives, I used ball jars, and they can be pretty time consuming. Refilling each one, getting them back to, your wherever it is that you're mixing the syrup and filling them and carrying them back out there, and it just wasn't working for me now that I have more hives. I've seen these for sale in quite a few places, and they seem to be becoming more popular over time. Uh, I've noticed them for sale on eBay, AliExpress. Uh, some of the commercial beekeeping companies are now offering them for sale as well. And I've heard of some of the other YouTubers who are beekeepers, for example, Barnyard Bees. They're using these now as well. So now that you've seen how I make my syrup and the feeders I use, let's take a walk out to the hives and go ahead and get some feeding going. So I just walked out to the apiary and I've got my syrup with me, my watering can, and I brought a little bit of water and a brush just to clean the feeders. I don't want to remove them from the hives, but if I find any mold in there, I'll just give them a swish with that brush to try to remove some of the mold. I am wearing a veil, even though I'm not going to open the hives. In these weather conditions, it's a bit cloudy, overcast, and kind of wet. These are the exact conditions where you're likely to walk up to a hive, and they can be a little defensive. And one of the guard bees might just fly off the landing board there and try to pop me in the face. Based on my experience, it's these exact kind of weather conditions that can get the bees into a little bit of a testy attitude. So just for my own protection, I'm going to wear a veil while I feed today. Just popped the outer cover off of this hive here, and I did find a little bit of debris in the feeder, but it doesn't look too bad. Let's take a look. So this feeder's probably about a third full. There's a little bit of dirt and debris in there, but it doesn't look too bad, and I don't see evidence of significant mold growth. I also don't see any dead bees floating in there. You can see all the bees looking to come up and feed. Again, there's really not any bees flying because it's a little bit on the chilly side. It's kind of damp and overcast, and there's a lot of rain coming today. That's why I'm trying to get this done this morning. But look at that, look at all the bees. They crawl down right on the inside of that plastic ring there, and they can drink the syrup. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna use this watering can, and I'm just gonna top off the feeder pretty much right to the top here. It'll only take the bees about 36 hours to completely drain this feeder if they're not flying. All right, let's fill it up. I'm gonna go nice and slow, just so any bees that are trying to feed as I do this have a chance to crawl back up. I don't want to drown anybody. We're gonna get it up nice and high, right to the edge there. That's probably pretty good. You can see the bees have crawled up and they've clustered around the top. If we take a close look, we might be able to see their little tongues as they feed. Let's see if I can get the camera to focus as I zoom in here. It's a little tough to see with the sun and the glare, but let me come around to the other side. I can see a couple of them feeding over here. This might be a little bit easier to see. Yeah, it's tough, but let's try from the top. You see they kind of crawl right up to the edge there, right up to the edge of that inner ring, and they stand there and they can extend their tongue and dip it right into the sugar syrup. So this hive's all fed, and I'm gonna go ahead and just close it back up. I'm gonna put the plastic cover back on the feeder, pop the empty medium on there. That just keeps the feeder contained and safe. And then I'll put the outer cover back on the hive and a couple bricks on top. And of course the bricks, they're just here to add a little weight to the hive and to keep this empty hive body here from blowing off or sliding off if there's, you know, a high wind event. This time of year, 1 or 2 bricks is probably fine. And there we go, the hive's all fed. That's 1 of 8. I'll have the rest of these done in just a few minutes. I can fly right through them. I just opened up the next hive, and in this one it's a little bit easier to see the bees feeding. Notice there's a bunch of debris in this feeder. This is also a slightly different style of feeder. It's white instead of yellow, but essentially it works the same way. I'm not real worried about the debris in there. There's a little bit of black mold around the outside, but that's not going to harm the bees whatsoever. We can see the bees crawl down and feed here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to pop off this empty hive body here just to make it a little easier for me to feed. Put this cover down on the ground, and there's my little helper. She's out here helping me out as I feed the bees this morning. We'll pop this cover off, throw it on the ground, and then we'll grab the watering can, and we'll do the same thing. We'll just go ahead and fill this right up. Not going to go too fast because I do want the bees to have a chance to crawl up as I add syrup. That's probably good right about there. Doesn't look like we drowned any, which is good. There's a couple feeding right on the edge there. If you look real close, you can see on the left would be there, her little tongue, as she feeds. So this hive's all set. All I got to do is close it back up just like I did on the last one. Just finished feeding the last hive. Everything was looking pretty good. A little bit of black mold in a couple of them. I cleaned it out with that brush that I brought with me. No major problems otherwise. A couple of the feeders were completely empty, so it was a good thing I got to them today to feed them, because I don't think with these weather conditions the bees are going to be flying probably not a lot for the next week. It's looking pretty abysmal, to be honest with you. It's kind of sad. You know, we're almost to May here, and I'm really looking forward to getting some splits made and making a video about that. But I need to wait until we have better weather and better conditions for it. So until then, thanks for watching. See you next time.